Hello. You are listening to The X-Files by Trevor Shelby. Copyright Trevor Shelby. Make sure to subscribe, and when we get new episodes, you'll be the first to know.
Chapter 2, Margarita Therapy. The first block away from our house, I still walked like Brad was watching. Shoulders back, chin parallel to the ground, steps measured and appropriate. Even in ratty yoga pants and my ancient Northwestern sweatshirt, muscle memory kept me performing for an audience that wasn't there. God, when did walking become a performance? By the second block, something in my spine began to unfurl. The pristine lawns of Rosewood Heights stretched out on either side of me, each one manicured within an inch of its life, edges so sharp they could draw blood. The Henderson's motion sensor lights flickered on as I passed, illuminating their Japanese maple that cost more than most people's cars. Everything here whispered the same message: control, perfection, suffocation. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Lena. Where are you? The tequila is getting lonely. Then another. Also, I may have already started without you. Sue me. And another. Seriously, though, if Brad murdered you, blink twice. I smiled, actually smiled, and felt the unfamiliar stretch of those muscles. When was the last time I'd smiled without calculating its appropriateness first? By the third block, I'd unconsciously picked up speed, my body eager to put distance between me and that house. That life, that woman who sat through dinner being dissected like a laboratory specimen while maintaining perfect posture. The streetlights here were older, casting amber pools instead of the harsh LED brilliance Brad had petitioned the neighborhood association to install on our street. Security, he'd said, though I knew he just liked the way they made his Tesla gleam in the driveway. A dog barked somewhere in the distance, and I didn't flinch. At home, I would have immediately worried. Was it too late for dogs to be barking? Would Brad blame me somehow for the disruption to his sleep? But out here, in the in-between space of sidewalks and shadows, a barking dog was just a barking dog. The fourth block marked the transition zone, Rosewood Heights bleeding into Millbrook, where the lawns weren't quite as militant and the houses showed actual signs of life. A forgotten tricycle on a front walk. Christmas lights still up in April because who really cared? A garden gnome giving the finger. Quickly painted over, but still visible if you knew where to look. My shoulders had started rotating on their own, working out knots I hadn't realized were there. Each step away from Brad's domain made breathing easier, like ascending from deep water, pressure releasing degree by degree. How did I meet Lena again? The memory surfaced like a life raft, 3 years ago when I still had remnants of a backbone. Brad had been particularly cruel that morning. Something about my presentation to his colleagues' wives at a charity luncheon being embarrassingly amateur. I'd driven around for hours, crying, and finally stopped when I saw a salon with a punny name that made me laugh through my tears. Cruise control. Lena had taken one look at my red eyes and designer dress and said, "Honey, whoever made you cry better have good insurance because you look like you're about to commit murder." I'd laughed, really laughed, and she'd locked the door, flipped the sign to closed, and produced a bottle of wine from somewhere behind the reception desk. Emergency medicine, she'd called it. 4 hours later, I had purple highlights, which I had to dye back before Brad saw, a new friend, and the dangerous knowledge that I wasn't crazy. My life really had become a prison. My phone buzzed again. Lena, if you don't get here in 5 minutes, I'm going to start doing my own hair, and we both know how that ends. By the fifth block, Millbrook had fully taken over. The houses here had personality. Victorian converts, quirky bungalows, that one place painted purple that Brad called an assault on property values. Music drifted from someone's backyard, laughter that wasn't carefully modulated. The smell of someone grilling way too late, probably slightly drunk, definitely not caring about neighbourhood guidelines regarding acceptable cooking hours. I was practically jogging now, my body remembering what it felt like to move without consideration for how it looked. My hair, so carefully styled for dinner, was starting to frizz in the night humidity. Good. Let it frizz. Let it go completely wild. Let it stand straight up like I'd been electrocuted. The 6th block, and there it was. Cruise Control, the neon sign glowing pink and blue against the dark storefront. The salon sat between a 24-hour laundromat and a taco place that Brad would never set foot in, but that made the best al pastor in the city. The closed sign was up, but light spilled from inside, warm and inviting, the complete opposite of the cold LED perfection I'd left behind. I could see her through the window, Lena dancing by herself to something with a heavy bass line, holding what looked like her 3rd margarita. Her long, dark hair had a fresh streak of purple. Of course she'd started without me, and she was wearing ripped jeans and a tank top that said Feminist Killjoy in glitter letters. She was everything Brad despised, loud, messy, uncontrolled, authentic. She was also the only real thing in my increasingly artificial life. I knocked on the glass and she spun around, her face lighting up with pure joy. She practically ran to the door, throwing it open with enough force to make the bells jingle violently. There she is. She grabbed me in a hug that smelled like tequila and the coconut oil she used in her hair. Survived, the dragon lady? Barely, I said into her shoulder, feeling something inside me crack open. She gave me a day planner with Mrs. Bradford Hart embossed on it. Lena pulled back, her brown eyes wide with delighted horror. She did not. In gold letters. That bitch. She dragged me inside, the warmth of the salon enveloping me like a blanket. Good thing I made these margaritas extra strong. You're going to need them to wash the taste of suburban hell out of your mouth. The door closed behind us and I felt it, that click of moving between worlds. Out there, I was Mrs. Bradford Hart, walking disappointment and perpetual improvement project. In here, in Lena's domain of hair products and honesty, I could remember who Maggie used to be. Come on, Lena said, already heading toward the shampoo stations, where 2 margaritas waited, salt crystals catching the light like tiny diamonds. Tell me everything. Start with what that pendejo said this time, and don't leave out any details. I need to know exactly why we're going to destroy him. She was joking, mostly, but as I followed her deeper into the salon, leaving wet footprints from the night dew on my shoes, something in her words lodged in my chest like a promise. Destroy him. The thought should have horrified me. Instead, for the first time in years, I felt a spark of something dangerous. Hope. Lena's salon was everything our house wasn't. Gloriously, unapologetically chaotic. Hair product bottles lined the shelves like colourful soldiers who'd broken formation and decided to party instead. The black and white checkered floor was stained with years of hair dye accidents that Lena called battle scars. Magazine clippings of hairstyles were taped to the mirrors alongside photos of her clients' transformations, quinceañera invitations, and a sign that read, "Good hair days start with tequila." "Sit," Lena commanded, spinning one of the salon chairs backward, "and drink." Doctor's orders. The margarita was in a proper glass. One of the fancy ones she'd liberated from her wedding to Jason before their divorce. She'd kept exactly 3 things from that marriage: the glasses, a KitchenAid mixer, and a burning desire to see him suffer. I took a sip and nearly choked. Jesus, Lena, how much tequila is in this? All of it, she said, flopping into the chair beside me with her own drink. Now, spill. And I mean everything. Pretend I'm your therapist, except I'm cheaper and I'll actually tell you the truth. The salon sound system was playing something with a Latin beat that made the mirrors vibrate slightly. Lena's music selection was another thing Brad would despise. Too loud, too ethnic, too everything he'd trained me not to be. So, Karen, I started, then took another sip for courage. She actually timed how long it took us to arrive. Had her watch out and everything. That Bruja has too much time on her hands, Lena muttered, then louder. What else? I found myself recounting the entire dinner, and with each detail, Lena's commentary got more colourful. When I told her about the day planner, she actually stood up and paced in a circle, muttering in Spanish. I caught pendeja and cara de culo and a few others that probably weren't in my high school Spanish textbook. And then I paused, the margarita making me brave. Brad corrected me about my own college roommate. Said her name was Alyssa when it was definitely Alicia. Lena stopped mid-pace. He did what now? He always does that. Corrects my memories until I'm not sure what's real anymore. That's called gaslighting, mija, Lena said, returning to her chair. Jason used to do that shit too. Told me I was crazy so many times I started believing it. This was the most she'd mentioned Jason in weeks. Their relationship was like a recurring rash. Just when you thought it was gone for good, it flared back up. They'd been divorced for 2 years, but he kept finding ways to slither back into her life, usually through their daughter, Sophia, or with promises about child support he never intended to pay. Speaking of the king of bullshit, Lena continued, refreshing our drinks from the picture she'd made. Guess what his latest business venture is? Please tell me it's not another pyramid scheme. Emotional support, chia pets. She said it completely deadpan, then burst out laughing at my expression. I'm not kidding. He showed up at Sophia's school pickup trying to sell them to the other parents. Said it's the next big thing in therapeutic gardening. How is that even? Oh, it gets better. He's calling them chia therapy and claims they're registered emotional support plants. He made certificates and everything. I started laughing. Really laughing. The kind that came from my belly and made my eyes water. Stop. I can't. He tried to get Sophia to bring them for show and tell. Lena was laughing too now, nearly spilling her drink. My poor baby looked at him and said, Dad, that's just embarrassing. 9 years old and she's already smarter than him. I glanced at the photos covering the wall behind the register. Sophia smiled out from at least a dozen frames. School photos, birthday parties, one where she and Lena were covered in flour from a baking disaster. The kid had Lena's sharp eyes and skeptical expression, even at 9. She was going to be a force of nature, just like her mother. How do you do it? I asked, suddenly serious. Deal with him constantly disappointing her? Lena's face softened. I remind myself that she's learning what not to accept from a man. Every time Jason fails her, she gets a little stronger, a little smarter about bullshit. She took a long sip. Besides, she has me, and I'm enough. More than enough. More than enough. When was the last time I'd felt like enough? With Brad, I was always falling short of some invisible standard that kept moving just out of reach. Your turn, Lena said, pointing at me with her glass. Best Brad moment of the week. And by best, I mean the one that makes you want to commit homicide the most. He reorganized my closet, I said, the tequila loosening my tongue, while I was at the grocery store. Said my system was chaotic and inefficient. Your closet, your clothes. Colour-coded by season, then subcategorised by formality level. Lena stared at me. Maggie, mi amor, that's not a husband. That's a prison warden with a good credit score. I laughed again, but it had an edge to it. Sometimes I fantasize about just destroying his closet, taking scissors to his precious ties, mixing his black socks with his navy ones. Calm down, Satan, Lena grinned. We don't want you going full psycho. Yet. The music shifted to something slower, more personal. Lena got up and turned it back to party music. None of that sad shit tonight. We're celebrating. What are we celebrating? The fact that we survived another week without killing them. She raised her glass. To not being in prison. Yet, I added, and we clinked glasses. You know what your problem is? Lena said, settling back into her chair. You're too nice. You let him walk all over you because you're afraid of conflict. I'm not afraid of... When's the last time you told him no? Really? No, not that passive-aggressive, whatever you think is best, bullshit you do. I opened my mouth, then closed it. I couldn't remember. Exactly, Lena said, victorious. You need to grow your spine back, Mija. The Maggie I met 3 years ago would have told Brad to shove that day planner where the sun don't shine. That Maggie didn't have 7 years of being slowly crushed into submission, I said quietly. Lena reached over and squeezed my hand. She's still in there. I see her sometimes. Like right now, when you're 3 drinks in and calling Karen a dragon lady. I didn't call her... That's right, it was me. I also called Brad a soul-sucking corporate vampire before you got here, which I'm definitely putting on a t-shirt. I laughed. The margaritas were stronger than I'd thought. But sitting here in Lena's comfortable chaos, surrounded by the evidence of a life lived out loud, I felt more like myself than I had in months. You know what we should do? Lena said, a dangerous glint in her eye. What? We should make them disappear. I laughed. Right. Murder, super practical. No, I'm serious. She was grinning now, but there was something underneath it. Think about it. You take out Jason, I take out Brad. Perfect alibi, like that Hitchcock movie. Strangers on a train, I supplied automatically. And they were strangers, Lena. We're best friends. Pretty sure the cops would figure it out. Details, she waved dismissively. We could make it look like an accident. Jason's stupid enough to fall for anything, and Brad's so uptight he'd probably have a heart attack if you just served him non-organic vegetables. We both laughed, the sound echoing off the salon mirrors, multiplying our joy into something bigger than the sum of its parts. Okay, but seriously, Lena said, pouring us each another margarita with the heavy hand of someone who'd forgotten what measuring looked like. Let me show you how Jason pitched these chia pets to the PTA president. She stood up, swaying slightly, and cleared her throat. The transformation was instant and horrifying, her shoulders hunched forward in that particular way Jason had, of trying to look both confident and non-threatening. She grabbed a small potted succulent from the reception desk as a prop. Ladies, she began, her voice dropping into Jason's salesman cadence. What if I told you that your child's emotional wellness could be revolutionized by the ancient art of chia cultivation? I nearly spit out my drink. He did not say ancient art. Oh, he did. Lena was fully committed now, strutting around the salon with the succulent held high. These aren't just plants. They're therapeutic companions. Each seed represents a feeling your child needs to process. She paused dramatically, just like Jason would, then continued. Water them with your tears of frustration. Watch them grow like your resentment, only $49.99. But for you, special price, $49.98. Stop! I was laughing so hard my sides hurt. That's terrible. That's Jason. Lena collapsed back into her chair, setting the plant aside. 9 years I was married to that. 9 years of pyramid schemes and revolutionary business opportunities and debt collectors calling at dinner time. The laughter faded, leaving something raw in its wake. I knew that feeling. The moment when the joke stopped being funny because it was too real. At least he's your ex, I said quietly. You got out. After wasting my 20s on his bullshit, Lena countered. You know what he said when I filed for divorce? That I was giving up right before his big break. She shook her head. His big break, like I hadn't heard that every month for a decade. I thought about Brad. About the way he'd systematically dismantled my career ambitions with surgical precision. Not all at once. That would have been too obvious. Instead, it was 1,000 small cuts. Do you really want to work late when I need you at this function? Your boss seems to rely on you too much. It's inappropriate. Maybe you should focus on supporting my partnership track. It's more lucrative, anyway. My turn, I said, standing up with my drink. Karen at her finest. I straightened my spine into that particular rod-like posture Karen maintained at all times, as if she were constantly being scored on deportment. I pursed my lips in her signature expression of perpetual disappointment. Oh, Maggie dear, I began, nailing her condescending tone perfectly. That's such an interesting choice. You're so brave to wear something so youthful at your age. I could never pull off something so ambitious. Lena was already cackling, but I wasn't done. Have you considered perhaps a small procedure? Nothing dramatic, just a little freshening. Dr. Morrison works wonders with problem areas. He transformed Patricia Hendricks. You remember how unfortunate she looked before? The shade, Lena gasped between laughs. I continued, on a roll now. Bradford mentioned you've been tired lately. Perhaps you should consider vitamins or therapy. Sometimes women get these little moods when they're not fulfilled at home. Have you thought about taking up a hobby? Something simple like scrapbooking. We were both crying with laughter now, the kind that came from recognition, from the absurdity of the people we'd allowed into our lives. I collapsed back into my chair, mascara probably running down my face, not caring even a little bit. God, how did we end up here? I asked when I could breathe again. How did we become these women who accept this? Lena's expression sobered slightly. Because it happens slowly, Mija, like gaining weight or losing flexibility. One day you wake up and realize you can't touch your toes anymore, and you can't remember when it happened. I thought about the early days with Brad, when his attention had felt like sunshine. He'd been so interested in everything about me, my opinions, my dreams, my favourite books. I'd mistaken intensity for love, control for caring. You're so much smarter than you give yourself credit for, he'd said on our third date. You just need someone to help you reach your potential. Asterisk. I'd been flattered. God, I'd been so stupid. I hadn't heard the implication that I wasn't enough as I was, that I needed fixing, improving, managing. Remember when we were young and thought we'd conquer the world? I said, staring into my margarita like it might hold answers. I was going to be a creative director by 30, have my own agency by 35. I was going to own a chain of salons, Lena added, call it the Cruise Empire, have my face on billboards. Instead, you got Jason and I got Brad. And here we are, drinking tequila on a Tuesday night, fantasizing about murder. Lena raised her glass in a mock toast. Living the dream. The music had shifted to something with more bass, the kind that vibrated in your chest. I could feel it through the salon chair, like a heartbeat that wasn't my own. You know what you need? Lena said suddenly, pointing at me with the intensity of the seriously drunk. You don't need a husband. You need an escape plan. The words hung in the air between us, heavier than they should have been. I can't just leave, I said automatically, the response programmed after years of conditioning. The house is in his name. The bank accounts, everything. I don't even have a job anymore. Bullshit, Lena leaned forward. You're brilliant. You could get a job tomorrow if you wanted. I haven't worked in 3 years, Lena. My portfolio is ancient. Who's going to hire? When's the last time you felt like yourself? She interrupted, her dark eyes serious despite the tequila glaze. Really yourself, not this Stepford wife version Brad created? I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it. I couldn't remember. The real Maggie felt like someone I'd known once, a friend who'd moved away and stopped calling. Tonight, I said finally, right now, with you. That's not enough, Lena said firmly. A few stolen hours once a week isn't a life, it's a prison furlough. She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing something and doing something about it were two very different things. The space between them felt vast and terrifying, like standing at the edge of a cliff and being told to jump, trust that you'll sprout wings on the way down. Sometimes, I said slowly, the tequila making me honest, I lie in bed next to him and imagine what would happen if he just disappeared. Heart attack, car accident, freak incident with a falling piano like in cartoons. That's dark, mija. But Lena was grinning. I like it. Very film noir. Then I feel guilty for thinking it. Why? He's slowly killing who you are. A little murder fantasy is just self-defense. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Two women in our 30s who'd somehow lost the plot of our own lives. The salon around us felt like a bubble outside of time, where we could be honest about the darkness that crept in during our respectable daylight hours. We could do it, you know, Lena said quietly. Not murder, but something. Make them pay for what they've taken from us. Like what? I don't know, but there has to be something between accepting this shit and going to prison for homicide. I looked at her, my best friend, the only person who saw through my perfect wife, masked to the screaming woman underneath. Her purple-streaked hair was wild, her makeup smudged, her eyes bright with tequila and revolution. We'd need a plan, I heard myself say. We'd need an amazing plan, she corrected. Something so brilliant they'd never see it coming. And just like that, a door I didn't even know existed cracked open in my mind. Not murder, but maybe justice, karma, revenge served at exactly the right temperature. The thought should have scared me. Instead, for the first time in years, I felt truly, dangerously alive. The tequila buzz was starting to fade into something softer, more melancholic. We'd moved from the salon chairs to the floor, backs against the wall beneath the hairdryer hoods, legs stretched out on the checkered tiles. The overhead lights felt too bright suddenly, casting shadows that made us both look older, more tired than our 30-something years should allow. You want to know what my final straw was? Lena asked, her voice different now, quieter, more raw. The thing that made me finally file. I turned to look at her, this woman who seemed so strong, so sure of herself. But in this light, I could see the cracks she usually hid beneath bold lipstick and infectious laughter. Sophia's 7th birthday, she continued, staring at the ceiling. Jason promised he'd be there, swore on his mother's grave, which should have been my first clue since his mother's still alive and living in Tucson. I reached over and took her hand. Her fingers were cold despite the warm night. I'd made this huge party. Princess theme, even though Sophia was already too cool for princesses. But she'd asked for it, and I just wanted her to have one perfect day. Lena's voice cracked slightly. Jason didn't show. Didn't call. Nothing. Lena. But that wasn't even the worst part, she continued, squeezing my hand. The worst part was watching Sophia pretend she wasn't looking for him. Every time the door opened, her little face would light up, then dim when it wasn't him. By the end of the party, she'd stopped looking. That's when I knew she'd learned to stop expecting things from him. 7 years old and already protecting herself from disappointment. The weight of that sat between us, heavy as stones. I filed for divorce the next Monday, Lena said. Decided I'd rather be a single mum than let her grow up thinking that's what love looks like. Broken promises and dimming lights. What would my final straw be? I wondered. How much smaller could Brad make me before I disappeared entirely? What scares me, I said slowly, the words pulling from somewhere deep, is that I don't know who I'd be without him anymore. It's been 7 years of being shaped into his ideal wife. What if I leave and find out there's nothing left of the real me? Lena turned to face me fully. Mia, you think I wasn't scared? I'd been Jason's wife for so long. I'd forgotten what Lena Solo even looked like. But you know what I found out? What? She was there all along. Bruised, maybe. Exhausted, definitely. But still fierce as hell underneath all his bullshit. She gestured around the salon. This place? I built this after the divorce. While Jason was selling emotional support chia pets, I was building an actual business. Turns out I was never the problem. He was just blocking my light. Before I could respond, Lena's phone erupted with the Moana soundtrack. Sophia's ringtone. Lena scrambled to answer, her whole demeanour shifting. Hey, baby girl, why are you still up? I could hear Sophia's voice tinny through the speaker. Tia, Rosa fell asleep watching TV again. Can you come home? I need help with my solar system project. Jupiter won't stay on the wire, Sophia continued, and I could picture her. Those serious dark eyes, probably wearing her favourite NASA pyjamas Lena had saved up to buy. Use the hot glue gun. I'm 9, Mum. You said no hot glue until I'm 10. Lena smiled despite herself. Right. Safety first. I'll be home in 20 minutes, okay? Don't wake up Tia Rosa. She's snoring really loud, like chainsaw loud. That's her superpower. 20 minutes, Mija. Love you. Love you too. Hi, Maggie. I laughed. Hi, Sophia. After Lena hung up, reality crept back in like fog. I glanced at my phone. 11:47 p.m. Brad's Ambien would keep him under until at least 6 a.m. But still, the familiar anxiety was already building. What if he woke up? What if he checked my side of the bed? What if... I should go too, I said, already standing, the room spinning slightly. You okay to walk home? Lena asked, getting to her feet with less grace than usual. Yeah, the air will help. I was already calculating. 6 blocks, maybe 15 minutes if I walked fast. I could slip in through the back door, change in the laundry room, slide into bed like I'd never left. God, listen to yourself. Planning your re-entry like you're breaking back into prison. Hey, Lena grabbed my arm as I headed for the door. We survived terrible men before, remember? We'll survive these two. At least yours is an ex, I said, the words bitter on my tongue. I'm still stuck. Lena's expression shifted, becoming fierce and tender at once. For now, just remember you have options, Maggie. You always have options. Even when it feels like you don't. Options, I repeated, the word foreign in my mouth. Like what? Like remembering you're brilliant. Like knowing you have a friend who would help you bury the body if needed. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like tequila and hope. Like choosing yourself for once. The walk home was a sobering sprint through the quiet streets. The tequila warmth was fading, replaced by the familiar chill of approaching my real life. Each block closer to Rosewood Heights, I felt myself shrinking, preparing to fit back into the Maggie-shaped space Brad had carved out. I caught my reflection in the darkened window of a boutique, hair wild, makeup smeared, wearing his most despised outfit. I looked alive. I looked like trouble. I looked like someone who might do something unexpected. I practiced my neutral face in the glass, watching my features smooth into pleasant emptiness. Sorry, honey, book club ran late. No, he was unconscious. I didn't need excuses. But the muscle memory was there anyway, the constant preparation for interrogation. Options. What options? My phone buzzed, the sound sharp in the quiet night. I pulled it out, expecting Lena checking I'd made it home. Brad, where are you? The blood drained from my face. He was supposed to be unconscious. I saw him take the Ambien. My fingers trembled as I typed back. Book club ran late. Walking home now. Another text, immediate. Book club ended at 10. I called Janet. Of course he had. Of course he'd checked up on my lie before I'd even told it. Brad, you have Harrison's retirement party tomorrow. You're supposed to make 3 courses. Remember? How could I forget? Senior partner, Harrison's retirement party. The one Brad had volunteered me for weeks ago. Maggie makes incredible hors d'oeuvres, he'd bragged, never asking if I had time, energy or desire to cook for 50 of his colleagues. Brad, and you're out drinking. I can track your location, Maggie. A bar? Really? I looked around frantically, realizing Lena's salon was next to Murphy's pub. The GPS wouldn't differentiate. At least he didn't know I was with Lena. He'd banned me from seeing her months ago after she'd called him a controlling asshole at Sophia's school play. Brad, you need to be up at 6 to start cooking. Get home. Now. Then, the one that made my stomach drop. Brad, we will discuss this tomorrow night after the party. Your behaviour has been unacceptable lately. I ran, not walked fast, not hurried. Ran. My feet slapping against the pavement, breath coming in gasps, the taste of tequila and freedom turning sour in my mouth. 6 blocks had never felt so far. Options? The word mocked me with each stride. What fucking options? Tomorrow I'd spend all day cooking food for people who looked through me. Tomorrow night I'd endure the party, playing the perfect wife while exhausted and hungover. And after that would be Brad's discussion, his cold, methodical dissection of my failures. But even as I ran back to my prison, even as I prepared to slip silently into bed beside a man who tracked my movements like a parole officer, something had shifted tonight. A door had opened just a crack, showing a sliver of light I'd forgotten existed. Lena was right. I had survived before Brad. Maybe, somehow, I could survive after him too. But first, I had to survive tomorrow. Harrison's retirement, 50 guests, 3 courses, and Brad watching my every move, waiting for me to fail. The house loomed before me, every window dark except our bedroom. He was waiting,